to Crime in Court. We are going to be reading through the Delphi trial transcript. This is the state's case, part 14. Stephen Mullen is going to be recalled to the stand. He is the former chief of Delphi Police. And then we are going to hear from another eyewitness. Her name is Sarah Carbaugh. Carbaugh. I don't know how you say it, Carbaugh. That's how I've been saying it. And she is one of the eyewitnesses who said she saw the muddy guy, which turned into the bloody muddy guy. She didn't say bloody, but it turned into that in the probable cause affidavit somehow. Anywho, so she is the one that gave the description for the first police sketch that was released. So the older gentleman. So I'll show you a picture in a little while when we get to her testimony and we'll compare the two different police sketches. All right, so let us get started and please don't forget to hit that like button. All right, so the state is calling Stephen Mullen back to the stand. All right, Mr. McLeland asks the witness, will you state your name, please? Stephen L. Mullen. And Mr. Mullen, how are you employed again? Remember, he's being recalled. This is I think the second, maybe even the third time he's back on the stand. He says, I'm an investigator for the Carroll County Prosecutor's Office. And you were involved in the investigation of the murder of Abby Williams and Libby German, is that correct? Yes, that is correct. And the last time that you were on the stand, you testified that you, as part of your investigation, had an opportunity to review the video at the Hoosier Harvest Store. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. And you did that on or about, well, you did that on February 13th of 2017, is that right? That is not correct. It was actually the 14th of February, the day the girls were found. Sorry, the 14th. Do you remember what time you examined it? Around 7 p.m. And tell the jury again during the time that you examined it on February 14th, what time period or time frame did you look at? We examined mainly the daytime hours the video retained pictures of. So the daytime hours that the video retained any pictures from. It was security video and it recorded the pictures of vehicles traveling east or west on County Road 300 North. And so we could only see the daytime movement. So we looked at that period of time. Do you have an idea of what hours you looked at? I know you said the daytime hours. Do you have an idea of when, specific times that you looked at? It would have been sometime between 8 o'clock in the morning and then as late as 5:30. And after you observed the video on that evening, you left. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Since that time, have you had an opportunity to review the video from the Hoosier Harvest Store again? Yes, I have. And when you reviewed it since that time, what time period did you look at? We looked at all the video that was recorded from that location. The video began and that we retained was slightly before midnight on the 12th and ended around midnight on the 13th. And the video again was pointed towards where? The video security camera was pointed down parallel the edge of the Hoosier Harvest Store as far as maybe 150 yards to the west on County Road 300 North. And what was your purpose in reviewing that video again? What were you looking for? We were looking for vehicles that were traveling on County Road 300 North, whether they be going east or west. Were you able to observe vehicles traveling east and west on 300 North? Yes, I was. And the video you were looking at, how was that acquired? Video was required through the FBI. They had a team that went from business to business in Delphi after the incident and recorded video from various businesses that had security cameras, and this was one of the locations that they went to record the video from. So the FBI gets the video. I feel like there's so much we're not being told about the FBI's involvement in this case and why they just suddenly vanished from this case. Is it even up to Delphi and the state of Indiana to be like, you know what, FBI, you go away? Can they even do that? So if that's the case, because that's basically what they said was that we turned the FBI away at some point in our investigation. So what authority do they have to do that? Is what I want to know. Anyways, the FBI just is a very curious part of this piece of the puzzle that I find very suspicious. We're not getting, we're only getting bits and pieces of what is happening there. But anyways, let's move on. And they were able to pull that video from the Hoosier Harvest store? Yes, they were. And did they provide you with documentation once they pulled that video? Yes, they did. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 213. Can you describe what that is? This is an affidavit of custody of records, item 213. And what's attached to that affidavit? Yes, this is the FBI report concerning the retrieval of video. You recognize that as the FBI report that came with the Hoosier Harvest Store video? Yes, I do. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as State's Exhibit 213. Mr. Baldwin says no objection. The court says all right without objection. 213 is admitted. Mr. Mullen, now that this exhibit's been admitted, did you note a time change on the video from the Hoosier Harvest Store? Yes, I did. And how did you know that time changed? Was it from that document? In addition, yes. So the FBI noted on that document the time change in the video. Yes, they did. Okay. Can you tell the jury what the time change is in the video? Well, the video at the Hoosier Harvest Store is 54 minutes fast. And did you take that into consideration when you're retrieving the video or reviewing the video? Sorry. Oh, absolutely. And so again, with that in mind, what time frame did you look at on the video when you reviewed it? Again, without reviewing my notes exactly, but it was between 8 o'clock and 5:30 p.m. actual time. On February 13th of 2017? Yes, February 13th, 2017. Okay. As you viewed the video, were there specific vehicles that you were looking for? Yes. What vehicles were you looking for? Well, we were looking for witnesses, especially Betsy Blair, who we just heard from in the last episode, and Sarah Carbaugh, who we will be hearing from next in this episode, and other individuals that were important to us to note. So they were looking for eyewitnesses at this point. They weren't even looking for suspect vehicles. And did you have descriptions of those vehicles when you viewed the video? Yes. And so you had a description of Betsy Blair's vehicle? Yes, I did. Who else's vehicle did you have a description of? Sarah Carbaugh's. Anybody else? Yes, I had a description of Kelsey German's vehicle as well. Sister of Libby dropped them off that day at the trails. And were you able to observe those vehicles on the Hoosier Harvest Store video? Yes. Mr. Mullen, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 214 through 219. Can you just describe what those are? This is a view from the security camera video at the Hoosier Harvest Store of a vehicle traveling eastbound on County Road 300 North. This is Betsy Blair's vehicle. Well, hold on, before we get there. Okay, look through that packet. And what are those generally? Are those photographs? Yes, they are. And what are they photographs? Where are they from? These are taken from the security video at the Hoosier Harvest Store. And are those screenshots of that video? Yes, these are screenshots that were taken from the video itself. And are these screenshots that you took? These are screenshots, yes, that I would have taken and were also given to us by the FBI. They can't be both. Some some were you took and some were from the FBI, I guess, but okay. And are they screenshots of various vehicles traveling on 300 North? Yes, they are. Judge, the state would move to admit what's been marked as state's exhibit. The witness says, let me rearrange. You got it? Okay. Mr. McLeland says, let me make sure I get this right. Judge, 214 to 219. Mr. Baldwin says, no objection. Court says, all right, without objection, 214 to 219 inclusive are admitted. And so, Mr. Mullen, I want to go through these photos and I'm going to have you hold them up to the jury so they can see them to the best of your ability. I want to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 214. Now, can you explain what that picture is? This is a picture of Betsy Blair's vehicle as she was traveling eastbound on County Road 300 North, and the time listed here would be on the video as 12:56:59. The actual time would be 12:02:59. And you believe, or the vehicle in that photo is whose vehicle? Betsy Blair's. Remember, Betsy Blair did the other sketch, the sketch of the young looking boy with poofy hair, or young looking man. In fact, that's a good time to put this up. So the picture on the screen there, you can see the two different sketches behind Richard Allen. And the first one, or the one, immediately to your left, would be the one that Sarah Carbaugh describes in her police sketch. And then the poofy haired guy, the one next to it without the hat, no facial hair or anything, that's the one that Betsy Blair saw or described to police. You believe that matched the description that she gave of her vehicle? He says, yes. And which way is she traveling? She's traveling eastbound. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 215. Can you describe what that is? This is Betsy Blair's, I'm sorry, this is Betsy Blair's vehicle as well. At the time it was on the video, security camera recorded it as 14:09:41. Vehicle is traveling westbound at this point. The actual time is 13:15. So that's Betsy Blair's camera traveling westbound. So she must be leaving. That's the time that she leaves. Well, so I don't get confused. I want to make sure I keep you straight in my head. Let's just talk about the actual time. Very well. Okay. So Betsy Blair's traveling which direction in that photo? At this point, she is traveling westbound. And what time is that? 1:15 p.m. So she arrives around, what did they say? 12:02. She arrives at 12:02 and she leaves about 1:15. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 216. Can you describe what the photo is of? Again, this is a picture taken from the security camera video, and it is Betsy Blair's vehicle as she is traveling back eastbound on County Road 300 North. And what time is that? The actual time is 1:46. Okay, so now she's traveling back at 1:46? I'm confused now. Why the 12? I don't know. Do you guys get it? So she's traveling and caught on camera at 12:02, again at 1:15, and again at 1:45. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 217. Can you describe what that is? Yes, this is Kelsey German's vehicle as she is traveling westbound on County Road 300 North. The time on that picture is 1:49 p.m. I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 218. Can you describe what that is? This is Betsy Blair's vehicle as she is traveling now westbound on County Road 3. Does he mean Betsy Blair again? Betsy Blair's vehicle is traveling now westbound on County Road 300 North at a time of 2:18 p.m. Then lastly, State's Exhibit 219. Can you describe what that is? This is Sarah Carbaugh's vehicle as it is passing the Hoosier Harvest Store camera and it is traveling eastbound on County Road 300 North at 3:56 p.m. So we've got a lot of varying time frames. We went from noon to now 4 p.m. Mr. McLeland says, Judge, I'd ask permission for the witness to be able to approach the TV. The court says yes. Mr. McLeland continues the map so he can kind of point out some things. The court says yes. Mr. Mullen, if you could come down here, I'll have you stand off to that side. I'm going to stand back here, and what I'm going to hand you are the state's exhibits 214 to 219. And what we're looking at on the TV is State's Exhibit 5 for the record. What I'll like to have you do is go through those photos and point out the map which way each car was headed and the time that it is on the timestamp. Before we do that, I want to ask you again, where is the Hoosier Harvest Store business located? The Hoosier Harvest Store business is a long rectangular building with another building alongside it, and the camera is located right here at this location. So if I were to zoom in if I were to zoom in this picture, right where this little walkway is, yes, in that approximate area there. And it is pointed towards 300 North? Yes, this is County Road 300 North. Okay. Can you take a look at the first picture for me, please? And the last picture, identify that again. This is Betsy Blair's vehicle traveling on County Road 300 North at 12:02 p.m. In which direction is she traveling? She will be traveling eastbound, which means she would have come around the corner here and gone past the Hoosier Harvest Store this direction. And where is the Mears entrance or the niches entrance as she refers to it? The Mears entrance is located right here. Let's move on to the next exhibit, please, and go through the same procedure. Can I put these over here? The witness asks. He says, yes, that's fine. What is that a picture of again? This again is Betsy Blair's vehicle as she is traveling now westbound on County Road North at 1:15 p.m. 1:15 p.m.? In which direction is she traveling? She would be going this direction, now traveling back this way. Move on to the next picture, please. Again, this is Betsy Blair's vehicle as she is now traveling eastbound on County Road 300 North at 1:45 p.m. and eastbound she would have been gone back this direction in front of the Hoosier Harvest Store area towards the niches or Mears entrance. Next photo, please. This vehicle would be Kelsey German's vehicle at 13:49 or 1:49 p.m. and she would have been leaving, or rather, she would have been traveling westbound on County Road 300 North, passing the Hoosier Harvest Store in this direction. And what was that time again? I'm sorry. 13:49 or 1:49 p.m. Okay. Next photo, please. This is Betsy Blair's vehicle at 14:18 or 2:18 p.m. as she was then leaving, traveling westbound on County Road 300 North. And the last photo? The last photo would be Sarah Carbaugh as she is traveling eastbound on County Road 300 North in this direction at 15:56 or 3:56 p.m. Thank you. Have a seat back at the witness stand, please. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you. The court says, Mr. Baldwin. And now cross-examination begins of Stephen Mullen. Just to be clear, you, sir, what you're saying is that you think is Betsy Blair's car did the movements with the timestamps that you just testified to. Is that correct? According to the description of the vehicle and the time period which we were told, that is what we believe. And she also came in, didn't she, and say, yeah, that's my car? I believe on one occasion she may have, yes. Okay. And Sarah Carbaugh, the same thing? Yes. So it's not just you that's saying it. These two ladies have come in and say, "Yeah, that's my car. That's my car." Yes. No other questions. Mr. McClelland? No redirect, Judge. Thank you. Does any excuse me, says the court. The witness says, "Sorry, Judge." The court says, "Does anybody on the jury have any questions for Mr. Mullen?" I wonder if the witness was getting up and she was like, "No, sit back down," or something. I don't know. There was no response from the jury. Court says, "All right, now you may step down." Witness says, "Thank you, Judge." Court says, "All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call it a day. I hate to keep you, I kept you late last night. I'm going to give you a little bit of extra time tonight. Again, while you go on about your own business outside the presence of the court," she's so nice, isn't she? "You will be in the company of the bailiff, so you cannot discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. We'll reconvene court tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Just leave all of your materials there, and Jody will have those available for you again. Please have a safe and peaceful evening. We'll see you all in the morning. Gentlemen." Bailiff says, "All rise." The jury's out. The court asks the attorneys, "Anything we need to do outside the presence of the jury?" Mr. McClelland says, "No." Mr. Baldwin says, "We'd like to address what we think is the opening of the door of the sketches. How would you like us to handle that?" The court says, "You may be seated, folks. You may be seated." "You want to do it now?" Mr. Baldwin says, "I'm happy to do it on a different day where we have some time to think it through and research it, but I'm just saying you asked if we had any other issues." "Yeah, and I want to say we're going to have an issue. I don't know the court says, "Do you want to do it later?" Ms. Diener says, "I could do it today or later. I don't have a preference." Court says, "Okay, we can do it later, then whenever's convenient for counsel." Baldwin says, "Okay." Court says, "All right. So nothing else then that we need to discuss?" "No, Judge. Thank you," says Mr. Baldwin. The court says, "Mr. McClelland?" "No, Judge. Thank you." The court says, "All right. See everybody tomorrow morning. Jody, you can go off the record." And they do. And then we go into the next day, which will take us into October 23rd, 2024. We begin court. Court says, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're back on the record in the state of Indiana versus Richard Allen. The defendant is here with his attorneys. The state is here by the prosecutor and his deputies. All of the jurors have." Some unidentified person sneezes again in the middle of the court talking, and she says, "God bless you." "All of the jurors have reassembled. Are we ready to proceed, Mr. McClelland?" Mr. McClelland says, "Yes, Judge. I'm going to ask the court to publish the exhibits that I had from yesterday. I have laid them out on the table just for my own organization, but other than that, the state is ready." "Okay, defense?" "We are, Judge." "Okay, let's go." Bailiff says, "All rise." The jury enters. Bailiff says, "Thank you. You may be seated." Court says, "Thank you, gentlemen. I'll let you get all settled in over there." "All right. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to see you back this morning. I hope you had a pleasant evening. The attorneys have indicated they are ready to proceed. Mr. McClelland." Judge, before the state calls its next witness, I'd ask permission from the court to publish to the jury the exhibits that I admitted through Mr. Mullen late yesterday afternoon. I did not make copies. We also would ask the court to allow us to publish some exhibits from Trooper Jason Page. We were able to make copies of exhibits that were entered into evidence, and we'd ask to publish those as well to the jury. The court says, okay. What numbers are we publishing? Mr. McLeland says, Judge, I'll start with the ones from yesterday, State's Exhibit 213, which is the affidavit for the record, and the FBI collection sheet for the photos from the Hoosier Harvest Store video. And then State's Exhibits 214 through 219, which are still shots from the Hoosier Harvest Store video. I'd ask the court to allow me to publish those first. You may, says the court. And then, Judge, we'd request from the court to publish additional exhibits I've introduced through Trooper Page. Those would be exhibits 18, 19, and 20. Those are the diagrams for the court's edification, the diagrams that Trooper Page stated that he produced from the information that he gathered at the crime scene. She says, you may. All of those things were published. Mr. McLeland says, thank you, Judge. The court says, you're welcome. All right, Mr. McLeland, you may call your first witness of the day. Ms. Diener says, Judge, the state would call Sarah Carbaugh. I might have to go retrieve her. Then the witness is sworn in. And now we begin direct. Ms. Diener says, good morning, Sarah. Can you tell the court your full name? My name is Sarah Carbaugh. And would you spell your first and last name? She does. Do you live in the Delphi area? Yes, I do. Have you lived in the Delphi area all of your adult life? Yes, I'm as local as you can get. Do you live in town or outside of town? I live outside of town, in the countryside. Do you live in the general area of the Monon High Bridge Trail? Yes. So are you familiar with the Monon High Bridge Trail itself? Absolutely. Prior to February of 2023, would you visit the High Bridge Trail? On a daily basis. And what was the reason you would go there? I would go there with my dogs that were not exactly the most friendly, so I can be able to walk someplace with them in private. And you said you would go almost daily? Almost daily. Would you travel past the Monon High Bridge entrance going to and from your home if you took that particular route? Yes. Was that a road that you traveled often? Yes. What entrance did you use to enter the High Bridge Trail? I always use what I know as the Mears entrance. And the jury has heard some about that. But let's talk about it a little bit. It is across from a property that belongs to a Mears family? Yes. Can you describe it? So, it is an entrance across from the family homestead of the Mears family. The land around Monon Trail was donated, or I believe donated or still owned by the Mears family, but is opened up to the public for public access. This trail is directly in front of the house. It is the old access point from the house to what used to be the lower field that no longer exists, and that entrance there can park about 4 cars. Are you a person who would walk across the high bridge? When I was 16, yes, but not as an adult. And would you say you only did it a couple of times? I did it 3. Okay. And I chickened out the last time and I crawled my way back. So, I mean, that just shows you how scary it is. Even as a teenager, even though she had done it before, it was still scary because it's so like rackety and old and yeah. Now, do you know Abby Williams or Libby German? No, no. At some point, did you learn that they were missing? Yes, through an Amber Alert. Do you believe the Amber Alert was on the same day that they went missing? Yes, I believe it was at night when it was released. If I told you that date was February 13th, would you agree? Yes. Had you been in the area of Monon High Bridge Trail on that day? Yes. Did you actually walk on the trail? No. And so, in what way were you in the area? I was driving by in my little red Saturn, trying to scope out how busy the trail was by how many vehicles were parked by the mirror's entrance. And so, how many times did you pass, or how many times did you probably pass that entrance that day? At least 3 to 4. So, tell us about your day on February 13th, 2017, to put into perspective when you would have been passing by the mirror's entrance. It was my day off. I got up, got to town, went to get something to eat during lunchtime frame, and then I'll admit it was a beautiful day. It was like, I believe, 37 degrees. It was a warm day for February, so I drove around the county many times, just checking everything out, trying to just get some sunlight in. But I passed by there at least 3 or 4 times just to see how busy it was, and there was vehicles there every single time. And was there a particular time that you went by there that you saw something unusual or that caught your attention? Yes. The last time I drove by around the 4 o'clock hour, I noticed a group of people at the Mears entrance. I noticed a girl that I believe from my memory, because it's been about 7 years now. She was bright blonde hair. I remember either something hot pink, either she was wearing hot pink or the moped she was driving was hot pink. I just remember her talking to a group of people and looking stressed out. What? What? And so if you were coming from town toward your home or the opposite direction. To clarify this, I was heading east towards home at that time frame. And so would the town or the city of Delphi be behind you? Yeah, the city of Delphi was behind me. And so you see some people at the mirror's entrance. And so what about that caught your attention? They looked stressed out. Like I can just tell you now from their mannerisms, they looked stressed out. So, did you continue on towards your home? Yes. And did you see anything else on your way home? I saw a man covered in mud and blood walking on the side of the road. Interesting that she testifies to blood when she never said he was bloody before. Now, you just indicated that you were driving eastbound? Mm-hmm. On County Road 300. Describe for us where you saw this man with mud and blood walking. I saw him on this side. Like, if I'm driving, he was on this side of me. So he was on what I would call the north side of the road and he was walking west towards town. When you pointed to your left side, you're indicating that he would be walking the opposite direction of your travel. Yes. And he would be on the driver's side of your car? Yes. When you saw this man, did you make eye contact with him? I looked at him, but he did not make eye contact with me. How fast would you normally travel on this road? Like 30, 35. Did you slow down at all when you approached the man? Yeah, because I mean, there's a man walking on the side of the road. I don't want to hit him. So, yes, I did slow down just a little bit. And did you recognize the man? No. At this point in time, did you know that Libby German and Abby Williams were missing? No, no one did. I'm going to show you what is marked as State's Exhibit 220. How does she know no one did? Obviously, she's been following this case if she knows that no one knew at that time yet. So somebody told her that, or she's following the case somehow. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 220. Yep. Do you recognize that area? Yes, this is the road that I was on, and I don't know if you guys can see from this angle. This is the Mears entrance. This was the route that I was on right here, going this way. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to make an arrow on the road just east of the Mears entrance, and don't make it too big so you don't have any other space, because I'm going to ask you to mark some other things. Okay. And then on the south side of the road or the bottom of the page below it, not bottom of the page, but below your arrow, write your initials. Okay. My initials, just so you guys are aware, are SC, obviously, but just in case. I believe your marker is drying. Okay. Okay. And circle the Mears entrance. Oh, the marker is drying? I know, your marker's drying up. Oh, no. Okay, you're doing a great job. Okay, now, where did you see this man? And if you could make vertical lines to designate an area, and then, oh, let me get you another marker. Thank you. The witness says, thank you. Okay, so there's that. All right, so there's that. And let me fix all these. And then I'm going to label this as Bridge Guy because that's who I know him as Bridge Guy. Again, following the case. So she knows things about the case that he's called Bridge Guy, and she apparently knows that no one knew at the time that she saw this supposed muddy, bloody guy that the girls were missing. So she's definitely exposing herself to the case or exposing herself to people talking about the case, and that as a witness, you're tainting your potential biases and influences and things. So there's that. I was going to ask you that. Yeah, okay, and there's that. So, Sarah, when you learned that the girls were missing, were you already home? I was. And in the days that followed, did you learn from the news that there was a picture of a man from Libby's phone? Yes. And so I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 210. Do you recognize this picture? Yes. And did you see it in the news? Yes. And when you saw it on the news, did you recognize the image? Yes. And what did you recognize it as? I recognized it as the man I saw earlier covered in mud and blood on the road. But was it Richard Allen? No, she still doesn't pinpoint that it is Richard Allen that she saw, just that the picture that the police released is the person that she saw. That doesn't mean that the picture that the police released is Richard Allen. So you see the problem here? Everybody keeps identifying the witness that they saw back to the images that were released to the public, which that's um, you could make a very good argument there that releasing those images to the public could have tainted people's witnesses' own memories of what the suspects looked like or who they actually saw that day. Anyways, so she says she recognized him as the muddy, bloody guy. And the one that you just marked, at least the area, yeah, the area of it was here. Okay. And so you became familiar that this person was referred to as Bridge Guy. Mm-hmm. Yes. And what was different about the man as opposed to his picture, if anything? The difference that I saw with him and the things that made me notice him was obviously he was covered in mud and blood, his demeanor, and the way that he was walking on the side of the road. May I get up and demonstrate? Yes. Give me just a moment because I'm going to have this exhibit copied for the jury. She's going to get up and demonstrate the walk, I guess. And Nick McClellan says, and so while you're testifying, they can do that. Okay, so Sarah, tell us about what you saw on the man that is different from this photograph. He was covered in mud and blood. He was walking on the side of the road and his demeanor was very sketchy. When somebody is walking towards you on the side of the road, when you pass them, You're going to look at them, right? And they're going to look back. He did not look back. He was walking like this, doing that. And he was covered from mud, mainly on the top down because this was darker. And then when you got to the bottom, his pants were covered in mud, and underneath it was blood spatters on his leg. How the hell did she see blood spatters on his leg from driving past him 30 something miles an hour? I don't buy it. Okay. And that obviously drew my attention because he's covered in mud and blood. Obviously. Now, was this unusual for you to see on County Road 300? Yeah, I mean, I literally thought he fell down the cliff rock hill, like he was being stupid, walked too close to the cliffs and just tumbled down the hill. I literally thought that's what happened to him. At that time of day, was it still light out? Yes. Sun was in the process of setting. You know how February sunsets are. They happen around like 4:30 in the afternoon. I will remember when I passed him. I remember the orange glow hue of the sun behind me as I was heading east. Did you take time to make note of anything else about him as you passed? Not really outside, just like those main basic observations and just noticing like he was acting sketchy. You saw him for a second and you saw the back of him. If he was going the opposite direction of you, how do you even know that he was sketchy? I just don't even understand how this is believable. Do you continue to watch him in your rearview mirror? Not really. Once you saw him in the media, the picture of Bridge Guy, did you contact the police? I did 3 weeks later. Okay. And why did you wait? I was very traumatized. What? What are you traumatized about, woman? What are you traumatized about? You saw nothing. You saw nothing. You saw a man walking. You saw nothing that is traumatizing. What are you traumatized about? Okay, let's continue. She says, I am very traumatized by anything murder related, and I will admit I am still terrified by some of the stuff that's going on. I was scared. I had a gut feeling that this was a local man, and I am a notorious overthinker about how to deal with a lot of these things. What? An overthinker? That's why you didn't go to the police when you supposedly saw something? My inaction in those 3 weeks was just me panicking and being upset and thinking maybe I saw, like maybe I don't know. I was just having a moment. And then when 3 weeks later happened, there was an officer who was standing out there by the Mears entrance taking tips. And honestly, I felt like it was the fate of God telling me, you need to be brave and go and talk to this officer instead of being scared here because this needs to be taken care of. Is anybody buying this BS? Is she just a paid actor? I really think that this is a psyop or Indiana, or not Indiana, Idaho 4 is definitely a psyop with everything going on there. But this is so bizarre. She's just like, yeah, I saw a man walking. I was so traumatized I couldn't go to the police because I saw a man walking. That makes no sense to me. If she had some information, if she really had information, don't you think she would have done or said something right away? Instead, she's like, oh, I just happened to be walking by and there were these officers taking tips. So I just gave them this tip. Maybe this person just wants to be part of something, wants to interject herself into something, perhaps. I don't know. I'm speculating. I don't know that for a fact, but it almost could seem that way if you think about it because she's changed her testimony from muddy to muddy and bloody. Well, not testimony, sorry. She's changed her statement. Her previous statement was just a muddy guy. Now she's testifying under oath that he was bloody and that she saw blood spatter on his leg. How can you see that if you're driving by so fast? I don't understand that. Just I I don't know. I don't buy it. And for that to happen and her not to do anything until 3 weeks later or whatever, it just makes me think she wanted to be part of the story, wanted to interject herself potentially. All right. Next question. So, at this roadblock location, were they stopping all the cars? Yes, they were. They were at that point where they were stopping everybody in three different areas. They had from what I remember, the Mears entrance is where I gave my tip. But I also believe they had another like police setup over on the opposite side of the Monon High Bridge. And then I think there was like a third one somewhere, but I do not recall where that was. And they were stopping everybody and asking for tips because I don't know how many of you are actually familiar and local with this area, but when this happened, it turned this entire county and every member in it upside down because this is a very small town. I think that's too prejudicial, but she was allowed to say it. Nobody objected. When you were contacted by law enforcement, then you said it was several months later. Yep. Was that the first time that you gave an official statement? Yes. And during your conversation with law enforcement, did they talk to you about the Hoosier Harvest Store video? Yes. Were you familiar with the Hoosier Harvest Store and its location? I'm familiar with the location. Honestly, I did not realize that there was a store back there. I just know it as a bunch of storage units, so I just thought it was just a storage unit building. I don't know. There was a store back there. I didn't know there was a store back there, but they do have cameras. Okay. So, and so law enforcement showed you some still shots from that camera? Mm-hmm. To see if you could help them determine your vehicle on the camera. Is that correct? Yes. And so, did you assist in identifying your vehicle the last time you passed by the mirror's entrance and this camera and would have seen the bridge guy? Yes. I'm or I'd like to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 219. It's already been provided to the jury. Do you recognize that? Yes, this is my old car and I used to have during that time frame. Okay. And it indicates a time and it's a 24-hour clock, which the time here says 3:56, close to the 4 o'clock hour. And is that when you recall driving by there? Yep. Judge, the state would move to admit Exhibit 220 and publish it to the jury. It was offered. No objection, says Baldwin. Court says all right without objection. 220 is admitted and you may publish. And he does. I'd pass the witness, Judge. Mr. Baldwin, cross examination of Sarah Carbaugh. Mr. Baldwin asks, or says, sorry, hi, Sarah. Hi. You used the word mud 11 times in your first interview with police. Yep. And you never said the word blood the first time you talked to police. I believe I did, but it's not my portion of law enforcement to catch on those things. What? It's not my portion of law enforcement to catch on those things because I believe I said mud and blood at one time. I do know that it is in the transcript for that area. It is me mumbling, and I will admit my first interview I was very nervous and I mumbled and rambled a lot. Why were you nervous? Why did you mumble and ramble a lot? And she had why did she have to admit that she's mumbling and having a hard time getting words out so she couldn't say bloody? I don't know. Okay. So the first time you said 11 times you said blood, mud. Mhm. I said blood once. So you said mud 11 times. Mhm. In that first interview, right? Yep. And when you said mud for the first time in that interview, you didn't say mud and blood, right? No, I didn't. The second time you didn't say, "Oh, I saw him in mud and blood," did you? I said mud and blood. I believe I'm trying to remember how many times I mentioned it, but there was a portion where I stand up in my little video for my interview, and that is when I said that. But you are admitting that in the transcript, blood doesn't appear? It does not. All right. Now, nobody prevented you from, when you were saying mud, pairing it up with the word blood, did they? Nobody said, well, if you say mud, don't say blood? Well, no one said anything like that. So you just didn't say mud and blood. That was, I said mud and blood once, but mud a lot of times because he really was caked in mud. Well, the blood doesn't appear in the transcript. It does not in that first one. Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered. Sustained. What? Okay, but we need to get a clear answer because she's being vague in her responses, making it seem like she said blood. She keeps saying she said blood once, but it's not in the transcript. So we need to be clear, Judge. You can't just be like, yeah, let the witness confuse the jury. Sure. Now, you were interviewed a couple weeks ago or a couple weeks later. Weren't you? Yes. And you said that time the word mud 13 times in that interview to law enforcement, right? I believe so. And in that interview, you never said the word blood. I believe I did because I believe that second interview, there's at least an hour's worth of video transcript that's missing. Again, we've got missing things, missing evidence, videos of recorded interviews with people is missing. That's odd, isn't it? Oh, okay. And there's missing video that you say you think you said blood? I just know that there's at least an hour portion of that interview that I personally have not been able to rewatch because it's gone. But you admit the transcript that you've seen shows no word mention of the word blood in that second interview, correct? I don't know, honestly. Can I refresh your recollection with the transcript and you could have an opportunity to review it? You're welcome to. May I approach, Judge? You may. So I'm handing you your June 19th, 2017 interview. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm asking you to refresh your recollection whether you used the word blood in this transcript from that interview. I do not see anything in here, but I will remember that. I do remember talking to that officer about it and being able to describe what I saw and marked it on an image. Okay. But in this transcript, there's no mention of the word blood. That I'm aware of, no. So now 2 interviews, no blood. So your second interview, well, you just looked at it. Yeah, I know. And there's no blood in it. I know. No one prevented you from saying blood in that interview, did they? No. Then we switch over to the third interview. Geez, how many times was this girl interviewed? And you never said the word in that interview muddy, did you? I think you meant bloody. That interview also took 2 years later, and at this point, I understand you're doing your job and you're doing great at it, but the details of that day are simple as it is. I saw a bridge man walking on the side of the road at the 4 o'clock hour. He was covered in mud and blood, and that's that. Holy whoa. What? What kind of an answer is that? This woman clearly is hiding something. She's getting defensive now. Except in March of 2019, your third interview, you never said mud, you just said blood. You mean the opposite? Because you just said, are you trying to manipulate this question? Oh, wow. No, I'm not trying to be tricky. Thank you for saying that. You are correct. In March, your third interview, you never said the word mud, you only said blood, correct? In my third interview, yes. I believe I said mud and blood. My description for him is always going to stay the same because my memory of him. Now, will you think your description's always going to stay the same? Yeah, my description is bridge man. But you do remember a third interview in 2019? Yes, I did. If you would it help to refresh your recollection to see if you ever said the word mud or muddy to the officer if I provided that transcript to you? I mean, you're welcome to. Like, how much freaking attitude does this woman have? Objection, Judge. Asked and answered. Overruled. March 2019. I'm handing you the entire transcript from March 2019. Will you please read it for the word mud or muddy and let me know when you're ready. Sorry, at the beginning of this, I was rambling a lot, apparently. Definitely mentioned blood in here, but I do not see mud. So a moment ago, ma'am, you had said that your description has always been consistent, mud and blood. But that's not true, is it? I guess not, but, well, in fact, you said the word blood 16 times in that third interview. I don't know if you counted it up. Oh, I didn't count that far. I just made sure. Well, you said many times while you were reading this. Does that sound reasonable? 16 times? I would say so. And in fact, you said that it looked like a hog had been slaughtered. That's how much blood you saw. I never saw slaughtered hogs. Um, I just know blood spatter, and that is something that I used as an analogy. So as far as how accurate that description is, I don't know, because I never slaughtered a hog. So the mud from 2017 in your first interview turned to blood in 2019? No, it's still mud and blood. So, well, you had indicated on your direct examination that you thought maybe he had fallen down a cliff and that's why he was muddy? Yeah, and he had blood on him. Why would I suspect he was a murderer at that point? Did he ask you that? Did you stop to help him? No, I'm a woman. I'm not going to stop and help a random man. Okay. And in that first interview, you told the law enforcement that the color of his coat was tan, not blue, correct? I did, but I will say that was inaccurate. It changed to blue after your second interview when you saw State's Exhibit 210, correct? Picture bridge guy. I think that's 210. I'm assuming she saw a picture of bridge guy and that's why she changed from tan to blue. She says, correct, but it was always blue. My first interview, I'll admit, I did describe the color of the coat wrong. So if you got one thing wrong, couldn't you have gotten other things wrong? Do you think maybe this had some impact on your thought process in terms of what you originally remembered versus after seeing this, what your memory changed into? The reason why I feel my memory remembers more brown than blue is just because of the fact that he was covered in a lot of mud. I mean, in your second interview, I mean, a blue coat doesn't turn tan when you put mud on it. It's a really dumb argument there, but okay. Next question. I mean, in your second interview, you even indicated to the person that was interviewing you, I don't want to be contaminated with the photo, so please don't show it to me. She says, you are right. And I still don't know. You guys know more about this case than I do. I really want, outside of this testimony, I want nothing to do with any of this. So the answer is yes. Yes. You did not want that officer to show you the photo. You are correct. But then he did, didn't he? I mean, it's hard not to. No, it's not. I could just say, okay, don't show it to you. Flip it over. Put it in a folder. Put it away. It's not that hard. She says, I mean, it's hard not to. It was all over the news, all over every single social media. It was plastered all over town. There's still photos of him plastered all over town. It's hard not to notice the image. In fact, the law enforcement officer, not only put it in front of you when you asked him not to, he asked you to keep it there during the entire interview so that you could be looking right at it if you wanted to, correct? Maybe. I do not remember if that was his exact wording or if that's why he put the image down on the table. I just know it was there. And after he put that image there, that's when your story started to change? No, my story has never changed. The only thing that probably has done me wrong is my anxiety in all of this. So, your anxiety makes you change your answers, apparently. Okay. And so, indicated in that, the second interview, that the guy you saw on 300 North was wearing a brown sweater, right? I mean, it was under his coat. How the hell you know he was wearing a brown sweater? Under his tan coat or blue coat? It was a blue coat. You also told, strike that, the guy you saw on the road had curl to his hair. He had a little bit of hair poking out. Now, whether or not it's curly, it's hard to say. I passed him on the road while I was driving. He could have been sweaty. He was covered in mud. It could have been just flipped up from that aspect, but he had a little bit of hair at the time peeking out. So a little bit of hair. Richard Allen, as you can see in the image, shaves his hair very, very, very short, close to the head. He has tiny little bit of hair. That would not be sticking out of a hood or whatever. Okay, so you also thought that he had very effeminate eyes. What? Are you romanticizing this man? Cause those are your words. Want to see them? I never said he had romantic eyes. Uh-huh. Uh-uh. She said, uh-uh. Effeminate eyes. You never said that? No, I did not. Do you remember taking a deposition with us, Brad? And yeah, would it help refresh your recollection if I have you review your words from this deposition? I believe a part of that deposition, there's stuff in there that I don't think we're talking about. So, would it help to refresh your recollection whether you said very effeminate eyes? No, I'm good. You said very effeminate eyes. That's the person you saw had very effeminate eyes. Objection, judge, asked and answered, sustained. Mr. Baldwin says, I don't think she answered it, Judge. Miss Diener says she doesn't recall. Mr. Baldwin says, well, then I'd like to have her. Then I do not recall. I don't remember. Holy crap. So Ms. Diener says she doesn't recall, and then she just cuts in because she was like, oh, yeah, I don't recall. She's just going to cut in during an objection, which hasn't even been resolved yet. The witness says, then I do not recall. I don't remember ever saying that he had feminine eyes. I'd like, would it help refresh your recollection if I showed this to you? No, I'm good. I am good. So we can't show it to her and refresh her recollection if she says that. If she says, no, I'm not going to look at it. So that's a problem. And that's really, I hate when witnesses do that. I don't think that you should be able to do that. I think if you're being evasive like that, you should have to look. You should force them to look at it. The judge should make you look at your testimony or your deposition or whatever it is, because this is ridiculous that she's like, no, I'm good. I don't need my memory refreshed. I'll just pretend like I don't know. I'll just pretend and feign ignorance. You also claimed to not have your phone with you for all of the time that you were driving on that day. Is that accurate? I thought I had my phone with me. I don't feel like this day and age, I don't feel like I would have left the house without my phone and been driving around the county for hours on end without a cell phone. Also, they ping. Part of the reason they were able to contact me was because my cell phone pinged off the tower, so your information there is incorrect. So you did that's right around where the girls were found. Is that your understanding, or do you know? I don't even know where they were found at. But around the mirror's entrance, your phone apparently pinged. Is that what you're saying? I know that they also went through the cell phone tower that's nearby, and they went through every single person whose cell phone pinged on that tower. What? And that my phone did ping off that tower. What is your provider? My provider is Verizon. So you had 3 weeks of sheer panic, and then even after seeing the photo on the TV, and then it took you 3 weeks to go talk to the police. Yeah, I was a chicken, cowardly lion right there, just a chicken. You're you're a chicken for taking the stand and lying about what you saw that day for whatever reasons. You probably have a past, something that somebody is trying to pressure you on, Sarah, because you changed your testimony, and I believe it was due to pressure from police, from witnesses. I don't know, but this woman is not being truthful. And for her to just be like, yeah, that was chicken, whatever. Woman, there is a man in prison for 130 years, an innocent man in jail for this crime. And she's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm a coward. I don't care. So you saw a guy half a football field or so past the mirrors. Objection, judge. Form of the question. He's putting testimony in the question that hasn't been previously testified to. Sustained. So you were traveling around 35 miles an hour when you saw this person? I believe so, but I'll admit, I didn't look exactly at the gauge when I was driving by. Sure. I just know I was driving slow enough that I obviously was not speeding past him, but enough to at least look at him when I noticed him. And you only saw him for a mere instant? I would say probably 30 seconds at most. From like point of driving down to where I no longer saw him because I saw the people here, looked forward, saw him on the side of the road, drove past him, and then went on my merry way home. So you saw him for a split second, and you're just like, yeah, he was muddy bloody. I know, and I recognize him instantly from the police photograph, even though my description of him is totally different. In terms of the details, you saw him for a mere second, the details of his face. I'd say about 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a long time. You did not see him for 30 seconds. You glared at him for a few seconds. I guarantee it was not 30 seconds. She says, I'd say about 30 seconds, not enough to get like an is this man right here, but enough to be like, yeah, that's a white man in his 30s to 40s, maybe 50s. This guy is covered in mud and blood. He's very suspicious. Don't know why, he's just suspicious. He's wearing an extreme amount of layers for a day that is so warm, and he's just being weird. Walking down the street, being weird to her. Walking down the street means being weird. In terms of the details, oh, sorry, I saw that, or I just read that. You remember being deposed when Mr. Rosie and I deposed you? Yes. You told us that you only saw him for a mere instant. Isn't that correct? I would say 30 seconds is a mere instant unless your instant is a different definition of my instant. That's fair. It is, but that's fair. A mere instant in your world is 30 seconds? Yes. Okay. And you also did not have time to study any details of this person that you saw? Yeah, I can't tell you how many freckles he had or if he had feminine eyes or any of that. Well, do you want to refresh your recollection about the effeminate eyes? I believe they said no. You know, I don't have any other questions. Thank you. The witness says, you're welcome, Ms. Diener, says the court. Ms. Diener has some redirect for Sarah. Of course she does, because she wants to try to rehabilitate her. She's a horrible witness for the state. She's so uh, defiant and um, unwilling to be helpful during that cross. That was pretty good for the defense, bad for the state. All right, so Ms. Diener says, Sarah, let's start with the tan sweater. When you say tan sweater, and when you say a hoodie, would that be like a pullover type of thing that has a hood on it? Yes. Like think of your sweater that you pull over, has a pocket in the front that has the hood on the back. The biggest thing is it had a hood. Okay. So you could see a tan hood. Yes, I believe, and you indicated there was a question about whether you saw hair. Did you see a hat on this person? Yes, there was a hat on this person. So a hat and a hood. Can you describe the hat? The hat was odd to me, which I will admit that I'm really only familiar with baseball caps. Anything else, it is a weird hat to me. So I just remember it was a funky looking hat, not one that's common in my wardrobe. Okay. How old is this person? She comes off like a child, a juvenile. So many pictures of hats over the years. In every interview, I've done so many. I feel like it's just a Tinder profile now on flipping hats. What? Okay. Could you have mistaken hair for a part of the hat? Maybe, but did this hat have anything that covered the ears? I saw the bottom of his ears, but also he was hunched like this, and she demonstrates. So I don't know if it also kind of pushed his hat up, because I'll admit, like when I remember, it was a weird hat, but I'm sorry, like my mind is a little tainted when it comes to that hat. Her mind is tainted. Yeah, I'd say so. I cannot tell you the exact details of that hat anymore without feeling like I've been compromised. Who's compromised you? Interesting use of words. And when you are describing what part of his ears you could see, you were hunching your shoulders, correct? It was just like the lower bits of his ears. And you were describing his shoulders as hunched up? Yeah, he was hunched up. Could you see his hands? No, he had his hands in his pocket the entire time. And how would you describe his posture? Weird. Sketchy. I didn't know posture could be weird or sketchy, but that's what it is to her. No, in words, how would you describe it? Oh, he was slumped over. He was kind of like, what would you say? Like curled into himself. Okay. And then you also said that someone told you that they identified your phone number in a ping. Is that correct? Yes. You then said they checked all the numbers that came up in a ping. Do you personally know that? I just know that because my family lives nearby and all of them got called and questioned, and anybody that I remember from that time frame talking on social media, they mentioned that their phones were pinged and talked through that process. In your process of being interviewed multiple times, did an officer talk to you about your phone being located in the area? Yes, I believe it was in either the first or second interview well, did officers indicate to you that they were trying to make contact with everyone's phone they pinged in the area? Yes, they were. Okay. He keeps cutting her off and I'm here for it because she's annoying. Contacting everything. They were contacting everything. And I feel like it's important to point out to them they were also following thousands of tips at the time frame. What does that have to do with it? Okay. Fair. Let's only talk about what you personally know. Oh, sorry. That's okay. So you believe you learned something about phone numbers in a pinged area from the law enforcement? Yes, I believe. Okay. Let's talk about your second interview. Mm-hmm. You indicated that you had an opportunity to review your second interview on video? Yes. Is that correct? Yes. And when you started to observe the second video, did you notice that a portion of the discussion with the officer was missing? Yes, a good portion. Okay. And you indicated to Mr. Baldwin that you believed it was an hour to an hour and a half. Is that correct? Yes. And during that portion of the interview, were you telling the officer about mud and blood on the person that you saw? Yes. And at was it during that period of time that the officer provided you with a picture of Bridge Guy? Yes. And at that point, you indicated to him that you had already seen the image on media? On the media? In the media? Yes. And so, were you asked to mark on this picture of Bridge Guy what you observed in the neighborhood of mud and blood? Yes, I was. I'd like to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 221. Do you recognize this image? Yes, I do. This is the image I marked on here when you guys took a look at it. Well, I'll tell you, or I'll let you talk about it. Oh, sorry. So, do you recognize the image, correct? Yes, I do. Okay, and so by the time the officer gave you this image, Ms. Diener says, Judge, I would move to admit 221, no objection, and publish to the jury. All right, without objection, 221's admitted. And okay, Sarah, so during the first hour to hour and a half of that interview, second interview in June of 2017, had you and the officer already communicated that the person you saw on the side of the road you believed to be the Bridge Guy? Yes. That was an image produced in the media? Yes. Okay. And so you were then asked to indicate on this photograph, or did unask, I don't know how at this point, but you marked on it. Yes, I marked on it. And what were you trying to illustrate? May I just, it's safer for me to talk with my hands. Sorry. So down here on the bottom, these dots, this is what I was indicating as the blood. The line, the lines that are up on the pants, mud. Same with here, or same with right here. And then this up here was me trying to like put an outline to the pesky hat, but this is just a line to kind of indicate the outline of his hat. So she drew on a picture of Bridge Guy a hat or an outline of what she thinks is a hat. I don't know. She doesn't know hats. And then she drew some mud and blood on the pants, apparently. But mud lines for mud on his coat, dots of blood on his pants. And you were using an ink pen to draw on this photograph? I was using a pencil. If I knew it was going to be evidence, I would have given you guys a nice little marker down thing that was color coded. And so I'm sorry about that. And so this area on the front of his coat, is that mud or blood or both? I saw it as mud, but I'm sorry, the coat was dark enough that if he had blood on it, it would not have drawn my attention as quickly as the light colored pants with the red on it. But you thought his coat was tan. So now you're saying, okay. Now, I cannot tell from looking at this image, but did you mark the sleeves at all? I did mark, I believe, some of the sleeves. Once again, I'm sorry, guys. If I knew this was going to be like this, I would have done it in a better marker, but I believe I did get some of the sleeves, maybe. And was the sleeves mud or blood? They were mud. And then on the pants, you have a little, looks like raindrops almost. Yes. And those are splatters of mud or blood. Those are spatters of blood. And then what about you said lower on the pants? He was caked with mud. Like, okay. And that's outside of this photograph. Yeah. Like he was caked so much. Like he had to have been like right down by the river. Like 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 this girl sounds like a valley girl. Okay. Like he was really muddy. Thank you, Sarah. You're welcome. Now, when you did the third interview, you were asked why you didn't talk too much about the mud and the blood. Hadn't you already told multiple officers in your first interview about mud and blood? Objection. That's not what the evidence showed in the first interview. Sustained. Had you indicated to the officers in your first interview that there was mud and blood? Yes. Objection. That's not what she did testify. She said mud and blood, said Diener. Overruled. In the second interview, did you tell officers you saw mud and blood? Leading questions then. Sustained. In the second interview, did you describe mud and blood? Leading, Judge. Overruled. What? It's the same damn question. And the witness says yes. In the third interview, did you feel the need to focus on mud and blood again? No, I focused on the blood because I felt like that was the more important aspect that they were wanting. That's not a good excuse. He says no, or she says no other questions. The court passes it to Mr. Baldwin, and we do have some recross. Mr. Baldwin says, so the reason you did not talk about mud when describing this person you saw on 300 North in that third interview is because you were exhausted talking about the mud, apparently. Is that what you're saying? No, I don't believe that was it. I believe it was just the way the questioning that came up with the police officers. That's just what we focused on. That's what we focused on? I would say that's what the officers were focusing on when they were questioning me. You said the word mud 13 times in the second interview. We're doing this again? Says the witness. Wow. She is so rude and immature. Yes, we are. So your testimony is apparently that after you said mud 13 times without blood, that when the video cut off, then that's when you started talking about blood. Is that what you're saying? No. What I'm saying is at the point where it was just one officer and I in the room and we were talking and he had me describing the story, I was comfortable enough that I talked and gave him more details. And that's not on video apparently. That video is missing and that's not on my fault. Why would she need to feel more comfortable to tell them that there was blood? That makes no sense. She says that is just a technology error. Well, we have to take this is from the second interview. This is an image from what I know was taken from Libby's phone. I understand, but when you wrote on this, it was during the second interview? Yes, I wrote on it during the second interview. And we have to take your word for it that whatever is on the bottom of those pants is mud, which is what you said 13 times, and not blood, which you didn't say at any time. It's mud and blood on both. And take your word for that? It's mud and blood. I have no other questions. Does anybody on the jury have any questions for Ms. Carbaugh? Okay, I see a couple. So we're going to have a little sidebar and then some jury questions here. All right, sidebar conference begins. Mr. Baldwin says, oops, sorry. Court says, no, you're fine. Okay. What's your age in February 2017? That's a good question because I feel like this girl is quite young and not very I don't know. I don't know what she looks like. Can't see her, obviously. We don't have video, so I'm going to assume that she is practically a teenager, even though she did say she worked and didn't say anything about her being in school. So, but by her behavior on the stand, I think she's a teenager. Anyways, that's a great question. And Ms. Diener says that's fine. The court says, is it possible during the police interview that they could have misheard or confused words mud and blood? Mr. Baldwin says, no, I'll object to that. Ms. Diener says they can only testify to their perception, so no, even though I'm sure the state wanted that in there. Court says, okay, being that the officer heard the words so many times, so yeah, we're not doing that. Okay, so no. That was another question about his perception of it. Next question is, how wide is the road? Mr. Baldwin says, yeah, I'm good with that. Ms. Diener says, I'm okay with that. The court says, can you describe why you concluded he had blood spatters? Mr. Baldwin says, that she can testify to. I'd say yeah, says Ms. Diener. Court says, how obvious were the blood spatters compared to the mud on the man that you saw? Mr. Baldwin says, I don't know that she can testify to that. And Ms. Diener agrees. Court says, how old were you at the time of your initial interview? Mr. Baldwin says, no. Ms. Diener says, but they're the same. The court says, so same. Okay, so no to that one. How close to the man were you when you passed by him? Mr. Baldwin says, yeah. The court says, so do you want me to say like in feet or just let her describe? Ms. Diener says, let her describe. Mr. Baldwin says, let Ms. Mudd describe it. Let Ms. Mudd describe it, he says. That's some sass. I'm liking it. And the court just says, okay. Mr. Baldwin says, she has played it up. Court says, my goodness. Okay, lots of questions. Sidebar concluded. Now, this is in front of the jury. Questions posed to Sarah Carbaugh by the court. So, Ms. Carbaugh, I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you these questions, and then the attorneys will have an opportunity to follow up, okay? Okay. So, what was your age in February of 2017? 27, 28. Holy cow. This girl is immature. 27 or 28? In 2017? Yeah, let's see. I'm 35 now. This woman's 35, and she's acting like this on the stand. That was, I should say, 26 maybe. Okay. Any follow up? No, says Ms. Diener. Mr. Baldwin? No, Judge, thank you. Next question. How wide is the road? Oh, it's a country road, so if you have two big pickup trucks crossing, you're going to have tires on either side of the road. It's small enough that it can fit like a vehicle, like one vehicle comfortably, but if you've got two going at the same direction, you are going to have somebody off the road a little bit. Any follow up? Why did they not make the road wider then, if that's the case? Any follow up? No. Mr. Baldwin? No, Your Honor. Thank you. Can you describe why you concluded he had blood spatters? Because I saw blood spatters. Ms. Diener, or the court says, follow up, Ms. Diener? Ms. Diener says no questions. The court says, Mr. Baldwin? No, Your Honor. Thank you. How obvious were the blood spatters compared to the mud on the man that you saw? The blood spatters, when blood is fresh, it's kind of bright red still. It was still in that bright phase, so it kind of stood out against the light, I think, but it was small patches with caked up mud. So the whitewashed jeans is what made it whitewashed jeans. This guy was wearing whitewashed jeans? So the whitewashed jeans is what made it more noticeable to me. So now he's wearing whitewashed jeans, a tan coat or sweatshirt with a hood, and like what? This girl is all over the place with her whitewashed jeans is what made it more noticeable to me. Honestly, if he had blood all over him, I would have not spotted it outside of the jeans. So if he's got whitewashed jeans, that means white colored jeans or light colored jean, like a jean with some kind of light whitewash on it. And she's saying that it was so light that it made it more noticeable to her. The whitewash on the jeans was so pronounced that they were so light, even though no one's told us that he was wearing light colored pants or bridge guy or whoever. And now we're being told that the whitewash on the jeans was so light that it made the blood and mud so noticeable. Honestly, if he had blood all over him, I would have not spotted it outside of the jeans, she says. Okay, any follow up, Ms. Diener? Ms. Diener says no. Mr. Baldwin, no, Your Honor, thank you. Last, I don't know if this is the last question, but the next question. And how close to the man were you when you passed by him? Less than 5 feet. Like, no, less than 3 feet, honestly. So, any follow up? No. Mr. Baldwin? Yes. You have previously testified that you were 20 feet or more away. I mean, you're driving. I should ask for clarification. Are you asking, like, as I'm driving, I'm approaching him? So, technically speaking, it started off as 20, then 10, then 15, then 5, 3, then behind me. Like, the closest you got to him. When I was passing him, probably would have been about 3 feet at most. 3 feet? I was driving. I didn't take a ruler out while I was driving and be like, hey, you're only 17 inches away from me. No, I was driving. No other questions. All right. Thank you, Ms. Carbaugh. You may step down. The witness says thank you. Ms. Diener says, Judge, may she be excused from her subpoena? Mr. Baldwin says no. The court says, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. All right. You may call your next witness. So they're not excusing Ms. Diener, or I'm sorry, they're not excusing Ms. Carbaugh from her subpoena. So I wonder if the defense had any plans to potentially call her again, which I don't believe that they did, but man, she was awful for the state. But apparently it didn't matter for this jury because they still found him guilty. Anyways, we will continue on right where we left off next time. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. In the next one, we've got Dr. Roland Kaur, who is, I believe he is the forensic pathologist, I believe, but don't quote me on that. We will find out more next time. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you then. Don't forget to hit the like button and bye, guys. Take care.